The DA Federal Executive Council is expected to announce the political future of embattled Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille this morning. Residents of Protea Glen near Soweto have vowed to do all in their power to keep land invaders from illegally occupying a piece of land near their homes. The Social Development Minister Susan Shabangu is expected to visit families affected by a devastating fire which claimed the lives of 8 people at the Taiwan informal settlement in Khayelitsha on the Cape Flats.
And later in sport, the South African Football Association, otherwise known as SAFA, will be charging former referee Ace Noble for bringing the association and football into disrepute.
Very good morning to you and welcome to Newsroom. A very happy Tuesday. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm Shante Yankees. Coming up this hour, the DA is set to decide on the fate of Patricia de Lille this morning. We will be keeping you updated. The press is set to start just past 9 o'clock. Not alone, Velen Kurtley is standing by with all your sporting highlights this hour. Very good morning to you, Velen. Good?
Very well, thank you, Shante. Good to be with you and good to be with our viewers here on Newsroom. I'll be bringing you your sports bulletins at 1:45 every hour. Time now to return to Shante for your top news stories.
Having a look at your lead story at 9 o'clock, the DA Federal Executive Council is expected to announce the political future of Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille this morning. The DA's Federal Executive Chairperson, James Self, his Deputy Natasha Mazzone and others will brief the media in Cape Town on the next steps in their relationship with de Lille. Well, a meeting to decide her fate was suspended last weekend after de Lille served the DA with papers challenging her possible recall. Over 70% of the DA's caucus in the City of Cape Town Council recently passed a motion of no confidence in her. De Lille is also taking action over a social media post by some DA MPs suggesting that an audit opinion blames her for irregularities in the City of Cape Town. She's expected to lay criminal charges at the Cape Town Police Station today over the fake audit report. Well, apart from the criminal charges, she will also complain to Parliament and the DA's national leadership. We now cross over to that much-awaited DA presser this morning, where the fate of Patricia de Lille is set to be decided. Let's cross live.
Residents of Cape Town, as well as the people of South Africa, regarding the matter between the party and Mayor Patricia de Lille. The party is deeply concerned with the impact this has had on the residents of Cape Town, the people who we serve, and the general public. It is no secret that the DA has suffered immeasurable damage because of this issue due to the lack of information presented to our voters. That is why, when legally permissible to do so, the party has sought to be as transparent as possible when it has led disciplinary matters between Mr. Lille and the party. At all times, the party has followed due process in addressing the matter, while always acting in the best interests of the people of Cape Town and abiding to our deep commitment to delivering clean, accountable and transparent government wherever we may govern. In the latter part of 2017, the leadership of the Democratic Alliance became aware of problems with its representatives in the City of Cape Town. This resulted from both tensions in the caucus as well as allegations of maladministration involving senior politicians and officials in the party. Confronted with this, we appointed a subcommittee of the Federal Executive under the chairmanship of John Steenhuisen to look into these matters. At roughly the same time, the city itself appointed the firm Bowman Gilfillan to investigate allegations of maladministration. The Steenhuisen subcommittee interviewed a number of councillors and officials in the city and was provided with documentation. It came to the conclusion that the matters pointed to prima facie misconduct in terms of the DA constitution, as well as other matters that required further investigation. The Federal Executive, after inviting the Mayor to provide an account of these matters, decided on the 14th of January this year to charge her with misconduct. A charge sheet was served on her, and it is provided herewith. We had hoped to conclude this matter within a time period of 2 months. We believed that this was in the interests of both the Mayor and the party. However, instead of cooperating with the investigation, the Mayor challenged the party's processes by introducing a number of interlocutory matters, including that the hearing be open to the public and that it should be conducted by an independent person or persons. This is simply not the way our party works. Our processes are regulated by the Constitution of the DA and the rules of the Federal Legal Commission. There is not one set of rules for Patricia de Lille and another for the rest of the party. However, the consideration and adjudication of these matters hugely delayed the process, with the result that substantive issues on which she stands accused have not been dealt with yet. In much the same way as Jacob Zuma, she wanted a day in court, but has set up barriers to getting there. Her actions were not consistent with someone who desperately wanted to clear her name. She sought to delay the process at every possible step. I will now hand over to Refilwe, who will explain the process that were followed.
Thank you, Natasha. While these processes were unfolding, the city itself was confronted with the first report by Bowmans. Pursuant to these findings, the City Council resolved to suspend some officials and to conduct further investigations into the conduct of both officials and politicians, including the mayor herself. These investigations are ongoing and we will report in due course. Both investigations and the matters that had come to light in the course of them caused the DA and the city to lose confidence in the mayor and the way she was running the city. Early in January, a substantial majority of the DA caucus requested us to permit them to move a motion of no confidence. We gave permission, and the motion was defeated by a single vote in the city council. Over 70% of her caucus voted for the motion, yet she remained mayor thanks to the grace and favor of both the ANC and the EFF, and some 40 DA colleagues. Ever since the days of Peter Murray and Basil Petrus, the erst mayor of George, the Democratic Alliance has sought a mechanism where executive office bearers in government can be held to account for substandard performance. We had for some time been mulling the introduction of an accountability clause, which would provide that such an executive office bearer who had lost the confidence of his or her peers could be removed from office. At the recent Congress in April, the party adopted such a clause, not only because of the situation in Cape Town, but because we want our executive office bearers to be persons who relentlessly serve the interests of the voters where we govern. We believed and still believe today that office bearers who no longer enjoy the confidence of his or her peers can no longer serve in such a post. I emphasize that a motion of no confidence does not always relate to allegations or charges. It can be introduced because of inefficiency or even style. It is a political judgment and not a legal finding. The Federal Executive has already received 3 applications from DA caucuses to introduce such motions in various office bearers from Matikama, from Cape Town, and from Stellenbosch. The Federal Executive acceded to these requests, and Matikama and Cape Town, the caucuses have voted that they have no confidence in the mayor in each case by overwhelming majority. The procedure thereafter is that the office bearer is given the opportunity to make representations why he or she should not resign from that post, and not as a councillor or a member. These are considered by the Federal Executive, who must decide whether or not the individual must resign. The Mayor of Matikama requested an extension, but the Mayor of Cape Town provided such a representation, which included the demand that a number of members of the Federal Executive recused themselves on the grounds that they were allegedly biased. While denying this, the members did recuse themselves. The remaining members debated the motion and the representation for approximately 3 hours, but adjourned the debate, having received draft court papers from Mr. Lil challenging the validity of the accountability clause. At this juncture, I'd like to hand over to James Self, the Chair of the Federal Council.
Thank you very much, Refilwe. In the meantime, Ms. de Lille took part in a radio interview with Eusebius Makaiser on Radio 702 on the 26th of April 2018. In the course of this interview, Ms. de Lille on 2 separate occasions indicated that she intended to resign from the DA as soon as she had, quote, cleared her name. The first was as follows, and Eusebius asked the question: let's say the morning after you win the legal case, However, do you really want to still be part of the DA? And Patricia de Lille replies, no, 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 no. I've said it many times, Eusebius, you know the writing's on the wall that people don't want me for whatever reason. And then on another occasion, Mr. McKaiser asks, if I hear you, you are saying, ideally, I want to clear my name, Eusebius. That's why I'm going to court, and if I win this battle, and when I win it, because I know I've done nothing wrong, then the morning after I've won a court case, then I will resign from the DA. And Ms. de Lille replies as follows, I will walk away. You summed it up correctly. The Democratic Alliance Constitution provides in section 3512 that a member ceases to be a member when he or she publicly declares his or her intention to resign and or publicly declares his or her resignation from the party. Ms. de Lille was invited to explain why she had not, as a matter of fact, ceased to be a member of the party by virtue of this section when she admitted that she intended to resign. She attempted to argue that this referred to her resigning as the mayor. The FLC, the Federal Legal Commission of the party, found that the context showed very clearly that she intended to resign from the DA. Accordingly, the Federal Executive resolved last night to endorse the findings of the FLC that her membership had in fact ceased as with effect from the 26th of April, the date of the 702 interview. We have informed Ms. de Lille and the city manager of this fact. The fact that she has ceased to be a member renders the other processes, that is the disciplinary hearing and the operation of the accountability clause, moot. The Federal Executive did, however, support the motion passed by the caucus and will apply the accountability clause should the need arise. The Federal Executive has therefore not at this point made any decision on the accountability aspect. We wish Ms. de Lille well in her future endeavours and thank her for the service that she has given to the party. This has been a confusing time for the citizens of Cape Town, for which the DA sincerely apologises. Our priority is to restore stability and coherence to the city government so that we continue to provide excellent and responsive services to the people of the city. We recognise that we will need to rebuild trust with the voters and will do our utmost best to ensure that we get back to the business of governing Cape Town.
Thank you, James. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You have been, and if you haven't got yet, you will be provided with a copy of these documents, including the documents relating to the charges served on Mr. Lille. But at this point, I'd like to open for any questions that you may have. Please raise your hand, and when I acknowledge you, please give us your name and the media house that you are from. Sir.
I'm Joseph from the Cape August.
Yes, Joseph.
Just for clarity, so Mayor Patricia de Lille is no longer the mayor of Cape Town. She's basically out. You just said you have informed the city manager as well. Who takes over from her now, and what is the process? And I'm assuming that she has been informed of this.
Mm-hmm.
That's just for now.
James, you're going to take a minute. Right. Ma'am.
Leanne from ENPA. So de Lille argues that she didn't categorically state that she resigned, but this is your interpretation of what her comment was on Eusebius' show. What's your reaction to that?
Sir.
Paul Verman from Newsroom. Seemingly the accountability clause initially wanted the subject to give them 48 hours to resign. This obviously in the DA's constitution now that doesn't apply. Did the FedEx consider then the sort of legal ramifications, especially given that you postponed the decision? What does this mean for possible court challenges going forward? Does the party have a comment?
Jan?
Thank you. Following on Paul's report of yesterday, it transpired that a social media posting was posted by some of your members, including some of your public reps, which pertained to some falsified documentation purporting to be from the Auditor General's office. Are those people going to be charged with any offence, given that at the point Mrs. de Lille was a dear member in good standing?
Sir.
Sandy Soparisa, Cape Town. Normally such press conferences are being conducted by a DA leader, Ms. Maimane. Is it why he is not here? Is it because of the recent developments over the weekend that he posted on Freedom Day that poverty and white privilege? Why is he not here tonight?
Anyone else? What I'll do is, yes, hi. Yes. Sure. Right, we'll answer the set of questions and then I will open for a second round of questions, if that's okay with everyone. So let's start with that. James will answer your question.
Yeah. The Structures Act provides that in the absence of a mayor, or when the mayor is not capable of acting, then the deputy mayor acts as acting mayor, and that situation will be the way it will be working for the time being.
Right, Leanne, I will answer your question on the interpretation of what Ms. de Lille said on the Eusebius show. I want to reiterate that this was a decision taken by FLC, the Federal Legal Commission of the DA. A transcript and recordings were given to the FLC of the Democratic Alliance to listen to and interrogate thoroughly, which they did. I do just want to repeat what Mr. Self said so that we have it on record again. Eusebius starts off by saying, let's say the morning after you win the legal case, however, do you really still want to be a part of the DA? Mr. Lille replies, no, 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 no. I have said it many times, Eusebius. You know, the writing is on the wall. People don't want me for whatever reason. Eusebius then goes on to say, if I hear you, you are saying, ideally I want to clear my name, Eusebius. That's why I'm going to court. And if I win this battle, and when I win it because I think I've done nothing wrong, then the morning after I've won the court case, I will resign from the DA. Patricia then replies, I will walk away. You have summed it up correctly. Now, I think it's very clear from that Mayor de Lille declares her intention to resign from the Democratic Alliance. And what is important to note is our Constitution is very comprehensive, and I will give you the clause to which you can refer yourself. It's section 3.5.1.2. A member ceases to be a member when he or she publicly declares his or her intention to resign and or publicly declares his or her resignation from the party. So I hope that clears that up for you, Leanne. Paul Herman from E24, James will answer your question.
Yeah, look, it may or may not involve a court challenge to the constitutionality of the accountability clause, but at the moment the matter is moot, since the matter is not before us at the moment. And although I had to recuse myself, and maybe Thomas will be in a better position to give background to that, the federal executive members who stayed behind said, well, there's no point in going any further down this track since the affected member has ceased to be a member on other grounds.
Yan, I'll answer your question. The Democratic Alliance was made aware of a forged document that did its rounds on Twitter and Facebook. Immediately when we became aware of this documentation, you would have seen yesterday I released a statement distancing the DA from this particular document. The DA did not create this document as an infographic or part of our frequently asked questions paper on Mayor de Lille. We did not post this particular post on any of our official platforms. We believe that this matter has been reported to the police, and we follow due processes taken by our courts or by any security agencies. So following findings by the police, we will then make a decision as to what to do to the members that unfortunately posted or reposted this particular false document. But it must be said that false news is a very big problem in our country, and I think we must acknowledge the fact that we need to be incredibly careful before sharing documents to make sure that they are in fact not false. I do want to say this: that particular document at no stage played any role or was included in any documentation used in any of Mayor de Lille's disciplinary hearings or in any of the commissions brought against Mayor de Lille. Rebecca, thank you for that question. Just to clear it up, it was the 26th of April of this year. Further questions, Yan?
There was a question from Musi.
Oh, sorry. I'm terribly sorry. I forgot the question about Musi, which I did have here. I can answer that. The Democratic Alliance has different areas in which people operate. I, for example, am one of the party's spokespeople on the Patricia de Lille issue. I have been communicating to the media on this issue for some time now, and it was felt that because I have been communicating with you, I would be the one to present this press conference together with my colleagues who have been intimately involved in this. It certainly has nothing to do with any comments that were made over the weekend. It is simply because we follow course so as not to confuse the media as to who's communicating on a certain issue.
Yan has a follow-up.
Yan, you have a follow-up?
I do. From your answer, I surmise that you are waiting for the police to finish their investigation before taking any internal steps against people who made these comments. I want to ask now that is that the DA policy now, to first wait for police to finish before you act?
Thank you, Yan. Leanne?
So for how long will Ian Nielsen act as mayor? What is the process after that?
Okay. Paul?
I'd just like to know, there's still the matter of the public interest, and you said that the DA will release your own official findings at the appropriate time. Can we get a summary of just exactly what that will be and when it will be released? What does this mean for the court review of the Steenhuisen report as well, where the mayor has asked for evidence to be submitted there as well?
Great, thanks, Paul. Jason? Okay. Yes.
So the allegations against the law, the corruption allegations, the allegations of maladministration, all of that has got nothing to do with this decision. This decision is purely based on the radio interview with Eusebius.
The incredibly polite Jason.
Just a question to Mr. Salford. To my understanding, according to the Structures Act, if the mayor is fired or if she resigns or if a membership is ceased, as in this case, the maker obviously resolves as well. So effectively, there's no executive government of Cape Town in effect as it is now. Who will be the maker? When will that process be running? We have a water crisis in the city, so we need a maker member for water to budgetly. June month is coming when the city's budget has to be approved. Council is in 2 weeks' time. So effectively, there's no government really. There's a council, but there's no executive government. Mr. Nielsen, everything bears on his shoulders now. Just confirm if my understanding is correct.
Great. James?
Yeah, thank you. If I can just respond to Yan's question. The policy of the DA for some considerable time has been that if a duly constituted state agency is involved in an investigation, we wait for that investigation to be concluded before taking any of our own steps. And the reason for that is that the constituted state agencies generally have things like powers of subpoena and so on that we don't have. And we don't want to come to one conclusion and the police come to another conclusion. So we wait for the investigation by the state authorities to finish, and then if needs be, we will take further action if required.
James, Leanne wanted to know about Ian Nielsen.
Yeah. How long would he act? I think if my memory serves me correctly, the Structures Act says as soon as possible. and so we would then seek to regularise the situation as soon as possible by getting a permanent mayor. And if I can just carry on then to Jason's question about the MACO, it is true that the MACO dissolves with the mayor, but we are very much aware of the need to preserve stability of government, and I have received from the Deputy Mayor some suggestions for the composition of that MACO. In terms of our procedures, that must be presented to our Federal Executive, and we hope to do so in the course of today.
Paul's question, James, I think that was aimed at you. He asked you specifically.
About the summary. Yeah. Look, we're just involved in some negotiations and consultations with people that gave evidence before the Steenhuisen Committee. But our own view is that there's nothing in the Steenhuisen Committee evidence that can't be shared, apart from people who, for one reason or another, believe that they might suffer retribution or intimidation. So we're in the process of checking out with people whether or not they're comfortable with those documents being released, and we will then make a decision accordingly.
And the Auditor General report, the Bowman's Gulford report...
Yes, those have all, to the best of my knowledge, been available, even if not officially available, if you know what I mean.
Will it become official?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rahisa, yes, you are absolutely correct. This particular proceeding today has nothing to do with the disciplinary charges or the Steenhuisen Commission or court actions. The cessation of membership today happens based entirely on the breach of our constitution, as I read out earlier, in terms of Mayor de Lille declaring on Eusebius's show her intention to resign. Right, we have another set of follow-ups. Yan.
Thank you. Who laid the complaint against Mrs. de Lille following from the Makaiser radio show?
Okay. Right. Leanne, I saw your hand.
Yeah. Are you hoping that the DA de Lille saga ends here, or are you prepared for a more protracted legal battle between the party and DA?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Tandi. I'm from SABC. Mayor Patricia has always said that she does not know what she has done wrong. Now, with the disciplinary processes now being moved, does that mean people will never know?
Okay.
Cape Town will never know what she has done.
All right, I'll answer that. Paul?
Just one follow-up question on the false news document that did the rounds. Okay, so that is not a part of the party's official reason why the particular rules charges. But I'd just like to know, on record, how does the party feel about the fact that there is seemingly false news doing the rounds in this regard? Does it make it more complicated for you to address this issue? And if the police investigation yields nothing, will the party at least consider its own actions with regards to getting to the bottom of what exactly happened, who possibly created, and how your members got a hold of it?
Okay. Yan, it was made public over the weekend regarding who laid the complaint about Patricia's utterances on Eusebius's show. I can confirm that the Free State provincial leader, Ms. Patricia Kopane, laid the charges, and I do believe that Ms. de Lille made her answering letters made known to the public. So that is in the public domain. James, you'll answer Leanne's question.
Yeah, look, I would like to think that the saga ends today, but I doubt it. Somehow I just know how these things work. But having said that, the Cape High Court has dealt with 3 separate cases relating to this particular clause in our Constitution, and in all 3 cases has decided that the people's membership did in fact cease as a matter of fact if they did what they said they would do. So I anticipate that there is going to be some sort of challenge, and we are prepared to meet that challenge.
Tandi, thank you very much for your question. Tandy, as we've said in our media report, and as it will be distributed to you, I see you don't have it yet. The Federal Executive invited the Mayor to provide an account of the matters following the Steenhuisen Commission, and on the 14th of January this year, we provided a charge sheet to her. This charge sheet will be given to you today. And as you've heard from James, we will also be providing you with all other documents to this regard. So the DA now is opening all the documents that we have that are legally permissible. We'll be making those available to the media, and you will be getting copies of those today. Paul, in terms of the false news, let's be honest, it's a massive problem not only in South Africa, worldwide. False news it's on the increase, and it's becoming increasingly problematic. It is very unfortunate that these documents were put on the internet, and it's very unfortunate that people didn't check that these documents were authentic before sharing them. So, of course, especially as a political party, we do everything we can to ensure that we never provide information that's false. We know of 2 public reps at this stage who did press, a share button on Twitter or on Facebook and shared this document. What we do know is that this document was not created by the Democratic Alliance, and under no circumstance did it form part of our documentation on our website, in any of our formal communications. So we know that it did not emanate from the Democratic Alliance. Unfortunately, it was shared. So I do think, and I'm sure James will agree with me, it's one of the issues going forward as social media grows and develops. It's something that we're going to have to look at very seriously. And we have a very, very comprehensive social media policy. And I'm sure that fake news is going to have to become part of our policy as we move forward, because we are seeing a massive increase in fake news, and certainly it does create confusion. And yes, you're right, it does create problems for us, because yesterday afternoon we spent the bulk of the afternoon dealing with the fact that the country wanted to know how this fake news was created. Well, Paul, no one wants to know how it was created more than I do. So absolutely, it's a huge problem, and one that as a political party we're going to address going forward very sternly.
If the police investigation yields nothing, will the party consider doing its own probe?
Absolutely. I think that goes without saying. We can't claim to be a party of accountability if we don't hold our own members to account. So certainly we will be looking at doing some kind of probe to get to the bottom of it. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for your questions this morning. For those of you that don't have copies of our documents, they are available at the front, and I welcome you to get hold of them. If you have any further queries during the day, I will be available to answer your queries. Thank you very much for coming, and keep warm and dry in the rain. It's wonderful to have it in Cape Town today.
Well, of course, so there you have it. If you have just tuned in, the DA has rescinded Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille's membership. We were hearing the party's federal chair, executive committee, the chair himself, Mr. James Self, making reference to an interview that de Lille had conducted on the 26th of April 2018, saying that according to the DA's constitution, I think it's 3.5.1.2 in their constitutional clause, citing that if a member intends to, or rather says that they will be resigning and publicly declares that they will be resigning, according to the party and its constitution, gives ground for that membership to cease. And that seems to be, one of the questions that many are asking. Is this then now taken around that interview that was conducted, and of course being confirmed there by Natasha Mazone of the DA, saying that yes, indeed, if a member does publicly declare that he or she will resign, then the party then takes that as the cessation of membership. Just having a look at some of the views that have been coming on Twitter, also via the press briefing there. The DA saying that the mayoral issue has caused huge damage to the party, and that's the news that has just come in, of course, that then confirms that a DA's membership of embattled Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille has been seized. We will be giving you more updates as well as reaction to this announcement that has just been made by the DA. For now, though, let's take a short break. Do stay tuned to SABC News.
No. Yes. Yes.
Sports Live every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m.
We give you a front row seat to all the local and international entertainment news on Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1. SABCnews.com is your one-stop digital portal to all the news you need. With a website that is easy to use on mobile, SABC News prides itself in being the primary source of public service content across multiple platforms. Watch live streams of all the big news events on the SABC News YouTube channel, which is one of the most viewed South African YouTube channels globally. And catch up on the best of SABC television and radio news. Follow breaking news on all of the SABC News social media platforms, interact with SABC News on Facebook, and stay connected on Twitter for the latest headlines and real-time updates by our reporters. SABC News, everywhere.
Robots, automation and artificial intelligence are becoming an increasingly important part of our lives.
We love the term disruptive technologies.
Parents and caregivers are taking part in Facebook.
On Network, we give you Africa's technology and social media news.
My favorite piece of technology is the microwave.
The reason why I can't live without my cell phone is because I do everything on my cell phone.
For all your technology news, catch Network with Spumelele Zondi on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m.
Shervin Brixby's SABC News, New York.
Paul Barber, SABC News, London.
Tebo Mokobo, SABC Ufa go tswa mo Russia.
Neha Punia, SABC News, Saharanpur in Uttar Pradesh in India.
Other than that, I've enjoyed every single moment of it.
Takwana Ngatani, SABC News, Soweto, Johannesburg.
Welcome back. Well, news just in just a couple of moments ago, the DA has rescinded Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille's membership. Well, the party's Federal Executive Committee has announced the decision at a media briefing. However, her position as mayor has not yet been clarified, and we will be giving you more updates on that, of course. Let's go. Patricia de Lille, as a DA member, we are now joined on the line by political analyst Sanusha Naidu. Very good morning to Sanusha. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Essentially, what do you make, of the reaction of de Lille's membership being rescinded, specifically with regards to, the reference that the DA made with regards to an interview that Patricia de Lille had on radio?
Good morning, Chantal. It's very interesting. I think the DA now realizes they need to expedite and move fast, and so they're looking for ways and means in which to align what they feel that she has essentially said in terms of her interview with the radio presenter. And in that interview, if I remember correctly, the interviewer asked her, what's the next step for? Would she remain in the party? And she said, no, she'll walk away. And they're using that as the phrase and the terminology to indicate that she has publicly announced that she would resign from the party, and therefore they're invoking their constitutional process in terms of how this aligns to their constitutional mechanism, and they're invoking that and saying, well, they're rescinding her membership. Now, rescinding her membership, we also need to wait and see what the reaction is of Patricia de Lille to this decision made by the DA in its press briefing this morning. They also citing questions around misconduct in the party bringing the party to disrepute. They're going back to the Steenhuis report and so forth. But clearly this is now an interesting turn of events, because up until this point, Patricia de Lille was still pushing for a public inquiry and so forth in terms of having to have her name cleared and inviting the media to that commission that they are setting up, and there were disputes over certain members and also disputes about whether it could be a public sitting. And so in many ways, I think now that the DA has pushed the ante, and the question is what would be the legal ramifications and what would Patricia de Lille be doing right now, probably getting legal counsel on what the next steps are in going forward.
Definitely. Sanusha, are there loopholes here? In having a look at that statement that was actually read out, the manuscript of the actual interview that did take place, they're citing that the person who was conducting the interview asked Patricia, would you resign or would you stay a party member? And she said, no, 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 I want to clear my name, and once I've cleared my name, then I will resign. Are there not, any loopholes here? And going forward from a law aspect, is there grounds for her to appeal this decision based on that?
Well, firstly, I'm not a legal expert, so I won't be able to give you any kind of informed opinion and insight into the legal aspects of this. I think this is definitely an area where the legal teams and the legal experts will apply their mind and look at the constitution of the DA and see what sections and subsections of the constitution indicate that in the event that a member of the party indicates in a public interview or in a public setting that they would walk away or resign from the party, then that gives them grounds to initiate these kinds of proceedings and make this announcement. So in that respect, I think you really need to have someone who has a key understanding of the DA's constitutional principles, its processes, and whether or not there are loopholes there. But just from looking at it from more of a broader intuitive perspective, I think that there's definitely questions around the way in which the phrasing of their press briefing could have has been put together. They're now looking at, they're making the prime context in which they have made this decision relating to a debate, an interview she had with a radio person, a radio presenter, where she had indicated openly her intentions. But then, of course, she says until she clears her name. Now, there's different ways in which this could play out. The DA's legal team could say, well, there was all indication that after this she's not staying in the party, so why must we continue with her membership? On the other hand, the Patricia de Lille defense could argue that this is, again, based on until, so there's a way in which the phrasing takes place. And of course, the question is, she's a member until. And so there's all of these different legalities and technicalities that could come into play. But I think seriously now, the ball has been set into motion by the DA. They know they've been hamstrung in particular ways around the Patricia de Lille incident. They're looking for ways and means, and they found one which they feel that they could defend, because they wouldn't have had a press briefing if they felt that there were different ways in which they couldn't defend it. And so they went forward. So, of course, now the question is, what is the next step from the Patricia de Lille camp?
Definitely. In terms of her being a mayor of Cape Town, where does that leave her?
Well, if they are revoking her membership, then obviously this means that her position as mayor is also under scrutiny and therefore would have a particular decision to be made. And she, you can't be, I think it's almost it's not necessarily unheard of that if you are a member of a political party, you are the mayor. So you can't be a mayor and not be a member. So I think technically speaking, that contradicts the whole process. So obviously that would now be under scrutiny. The decision will be made whether she would have to step down. But I think it will depend again on what her response and her legal team response is. How she responds to this, we've got to wait for her press statement in response to the decision taken this morning by the DA, and this could also continue to procrastinate the situation and draw it out even longer. So we kind of see a lot of uncertainty and unpredictability, but it's also the balance is swaying to and fro, and so this kind of keeps the thing in limbo, and we may not see the resolution in terms of going forward.
Definitely. Thank you very much for joining us this morning via phone line, political analyst Sinisha Naidu, on that decision from the DA party to rescind the membership of Patricia de Lille. We're also discussing where does that leave her future as mayor. Of course, it has been now put under scrutiny upon that decision. We will continue to give you reaction and updates on this story. Let's have a look at some other news top stories this morning. The situation remains tense but calm in Protea Glen near Soweto following a violent protest yesterday. Enraged homeowners in Extension 29 took to the streets after land grabbers occupied a piece of vacant land on a Sunday. Well, they say they'll do all they can in their power to keep the invaders from devaluing their properties. Mangoba Mqunu reports.
Hundreds of land grabbers erected shacks on this vacant piece of land earmarked for housing. On Monday, residents had had enough. Their fury spilled over to the streets. They blockaded the R59, bringing traffic to a standstill, demanding to be addressed by Johannesburg Mayor Herman Mashaba.
He needs to be here, because how can this thing happen in his watch? And he's been keeping quiet. This is the fifth time we had to actually deal with these people.
Shacks, they have a potential of bringing crime. And shacks are going to reduce the value of our houses.
These people, they've identified land. Yes, we agree, but they've identified the wrong land at the right time. So this issue of land expropriation of land without compensation is not yet addressed properly.
When a junior official from the housing department came to address these homeowners, he was met with resistance. But when residents regrouped, police were having none of it.
It's our responsibility to protect everyone who is entitled to use the road and those who are entitled to walk along the roads. So we are going to make sure that these people are protected.
While residents remain defiant, they say scenes like this will continue indefinitely until their complaints are listened to. They say they want the city to deploy a security company to guard the piece of land, saying if that doesn't happen, they'll continue with their protest. Mangoba Mqunu, SABC News at Protea Glen in Soweto.
We'll take a short break here on SABC Newsroom. When we come back, Valen Kirtley standing by with all your sporting highlights.
7 Brightspeed's SABC News.
Paul Barber, SABC News, London.
Tebu Mokobo, SABC Ufa go tswa mo Russia.
Neha Punia, SABC News, Saharanpur in Uttar Pradesh in India.
Other than that, I've enjoyed every single moment of it.
Takwana Ngatani, SABC News, Soweto, Johannesburg. This is your midday report. Good afternoon.
I will be faithful.
I assume as President of the Republic of Kenya.
Let's take a look at how African markets and currencies are performing now.
However, central bankers say the success of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is just a bubble.
Breaking stories, detailed economy and sport. Tune into Midday Report every Monday to Friday from 12 p.m.
Welcome back to Newsroom. Thanks for staying with the show. Let's bring you your sports news now. The National Football Federation will charge outspoken former referee Ace Ngcobo with bringing SAFA and football into disrepute. In a statement published on their website, the South African Football Association quoted CEO Dennis Mumble as saying, "We have preferred charges against him and he will soon be hauled before the SAFA Disciplinary Committee to answer charges of misconduct." The SAFA legal team is busy preparing the charge sheet, which will be presented to Ngcobo. Ngcobo called on FIFA to intervene in the SAFA presidential elections after a mediated process. The scheduled elections were then postponed. Reports over the weekend following an extraordinary Congress was further evidence that acrimony between the association, led by rape-accused Danny Jordan, and Ngcobo still exists. The elective Congress has, however, been confirmed to go ahead on the 26th of May. The Eminent Persons Group on Transformation in Sport has released its status report in Pretoria. The biggest concern is school sport, and all the stakeholders have agreed it needs special attention.
Sport and recreation. 84% of all under 18 youths in the country are black. The EPG report found that school sport is the ultimate platform to transform South African sports from dominant representation to a majority reality. The white-dominated sporting codes were warned that they would not be sustainable if they continue to ignore the school structure pipeline.
The fact that only whites are only 3.5 million of the population, if they do not exploit the large 80% population group amongst black Africans, they will run into sustainability problems. Some codes are already demonstrating that. Bowls, swimming, tennis.
It was also a concern that school sport in the townships and rural areas was ignored. The Department of Sport will revise the Sports Transformation Charter and weightings in the scorecards. In addressing the matter, a memorandum of understanding will be signed between the Department of Sport and the Department of Basic Education. It will address the challenges to introduce a coordinated and seamless school sports system and to improve access and delivery of school sport.
We will invest in time, resources and energies to making this program work better and to reach more school-going children working with the Department of Basic Education. We hope that in the month of May, we will have signed the agreement, and critical for us is its implementation.
Rugby was the top-performing federation from the 5 sports that were part of the pilot project in terms of transformation. It surpassed the set parameter targets, reaching a 60% mark. Lebantube, SABC News, Pretoria.
South Africa's Minister of Sport, Thokozile Xasa, says the South African government will not support Morocco's bid to host the 2026 FIFA World Cup. The two countries have had strained relations since Morocco withdrew its ambassador from Pretoria in 2004, when South Africa recognized the independence of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, also known as Western Sahara. Xasa was reacting to recent reports that quoted SAFA President Danny Jordan as saying he would back the Moroccan bid. SAFA has since backtracked on Jordan's comments, and they have indicated that a decision on which bid they would support, Morocco or the joint Americas bid, would be taken by their National Executive Committee.
Our parliament was very straightforward. It is the mandate of the country and an obligation, even when we are in sporting bodies, to understand what the country's agenda is. You cannot, just because you have been and have experience in FIFA matters, that you can go in a country that goes against the mandate of your country.
What is South Africa's stance? Because we have to support either of the two. So what is South Africa's stance going to this 2026 World Cup bid?
Well, at the moment, we really, as I'm saying, maybe we're a bit discouraged, but we're very clear to say, no, we can't support Morocco.
As government?
Yes.
And that's a quick look at what's been happening in your sports world. Newsroom will continue. Stay with Channel 404.
How safe is social media? 25 years into democracy and we're still battling with apartheid. Are we really the so-called rainbow nation?
If we can go there, they will beat us something or chase us away or kill you.
Not forgetting the dangers of substance abuse.
When he brought those things and came to us, it was looking so tasty with crushed lemons and strawberry and colorful straws.
Importance of education for all.
Yes, but
Is the judiciary and government failing the people of South Africa? These are some of our stories on Cutting Edge. Catch it every Sunday at 5:30.
A meteorite hit the Earth 2 million years ago, creating an enormous impact of crater, about 10 kilometers in diameter, near Vredefort in the Free State, 100 kilometers southwest of Johannesburg, now known as the Vredefort Dome, a South African World Heritage Site. The meteorite is said to have been larger than Table Mountain and caused a 1,000 megaton blast of energy. The impact would have heated about 70 cubic kilometers of rock and have increased the Earth's oxygen levels to a degree that made the development of multicellular life possible. The world has about 130 crater structures of possible impact origin. The Vredefort Dome is the largest in the world, followed by Sudbury Crater in Canada and the Chicxulub Crater in Mexico. Did you know that hippopotamus are susceptible to sunburn and spend most of their sunny days with only their noses out of the water whilst the rest of their body is immersed in water? Their noses have special flaps that close when submerged and can stay underwater for 25 minutes. The hippopotamus is the third largest living land mammal after the elephant and the white rhino. The hippo is 13 feet long and up to 5 feet tall, and the female weighs up to 655 kilograms. The hippopotamus is a grazer, eats up to 40 kilograms of grass at night, and it has a life expectancy of only 50 years.
How safe with social media? 25 years into democracy and we're still battling with apartheid. Are we really the so-called rainbow nation?
If we can go there, they will beat us something or chase us away or kill you.
Not forgetting the dangers of substance abuse.
When he brought those things and came to us, it was looking so tasty with crushed lemons and strawberry and colorful straws.
Importance of education for all. Is the judiciary and government failing the people of South Africa? These are some of our stories on Cutting Edge. Catch it every Sunday at 5:30.
The DA has rescinded Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille's membership. Residents of Protea Glen near Soweto have vowed to do all in their power to keep land invaders from illegally occupying a piece of land near their homes. Social Development Minister Susan Shabangu is expected to visit families affected by a devastating fire which claimed the lives of 8 people at the Taiwan informal settlement in Khayelitsha on the Cape Flats.
And in sport, the South African Football Association, otherwise known as SAFA, will be charging former referee Ace Ngobo for bringing the association and football into disrepute.
Very good morning to you and welcome to SABC's Newsroom. I'm Shante Yankees. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Of course, coming up this hour, we'll give you a reaction on de Lille's fate. Has been announced by the DA that her party membership has been rescinded, as well as the state of the province in the northwest as that takes place this morning. I'm not alone. Velen Kirtley is standing by with your sports this morning. Very good morning to you, Velen. A lot this Tuesday to deal with.
Yes, so following the Eminent Persons Group on their report on transformation status that was released yesterday in Pretoria. Lots of news coming from that. Thank you very much. Good to be with you and good to be with our viewers. I'll be bringing you a full sports update at 1/4 every hour here on Newsroom. Let's return to Shante for your news.
The lead story at the top of the hour, the DA has rescinded Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille's membership. The party's Federal Executive Committee announced the decision at a media briefing in Cape Town. Her position as mayor has not yet been clarified, but the party says it expects Deputy Mayor Ian Nielsen to become acting mayor. Over 70% of the DA's caucus in the City of Cape Town Council recently passed a motion of no confidence in de Lille. Last week, she indicated that she would go to court if the federal executive did not rule in her favour. The DA chairperson, James Self, says de Lille's membership ceased on the 26th of April when she publicly stated on a radio station that she would resign at the end of her legal battle with the DA.
Ms. de Lille took part in a radio interview with Eusebius McKaiser on Radio 702 on the 26th of April 2018. In the course of this interview, Ms. de Lille on 2 separate occasions indicated that she intended to resign from the DA as soon as she had, quote, cleared her name. The first was as follows, and Eusebius asked the question, let's say the morning after you win the legal case, however, do you really want to still be part of the DA? And Patricia de Lille replies, no, 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 no. I've said it many times, Eusebius, you know the writing's on the wall that people don't want me for whatever reason. And then on another occasion, Mr. McKaiser asks, if I hear you, you are saying, ideally, I want to clear my name, Eusebius. That's why I'm going to court. And if I win this battle, and when I win it, because I know I've done nothing wrong, Then the morning after I've won a court case, then I will resign from the DA. And Ms. DeLille replies as follows: I will walk away. You summed it up correctly. The Democratic Alliance Constitution provides in section 3512 that a member ceases to be a member when he or she publicly declares his or her intention to resign and or publicly declares his or her resignation from the party. Ms. DeLille was invited to explain why she had not, as a matter of fact, ceased to be a member of the party by virtue of this section when she admitted that she intended to resign. She attempted to argue that this referred to her resigning as the mayor. The FLC, the Federal Legal Commission of the party, found that the context showed very clearly that she intended to resign from the DA. Accordingly, the Federal Executive resolved last night to endorse the findings of the FLC that her membership had in fact ceased as with effect from the 26th of April, the date of the 702 interview. We have informed Ms. DeLille and the city manager of this fact. The fact that she has ceased to be a member renders the other processes, that is the disciplinary hearing and the operation of the accountability clause, moot. The Federal Executive did, however, support the motion passed by the caucus and will apply the accountability clause should the need arise. The Federal Executive has therefore not at this point made any decision on the accountability aspect. We wish Ms. DeLille well in her future endeavours and thank her for the service that she has given to the party. This has been a confusing time for the citizens of Cape Town, for which the DA sincerely apologises. Our priority is to restore stability and coherence to the city government so that we continue to provide excellent and responsive services to the people of the city. We recognise that we will need to rebuild trust with the voters and will do our utmost best to ensure that we get back to the business of governing Cape Town.
Interesting. I think the DA now realizes they need to expedite and move fast, and so they're looking for ways and means in which to align what they feel that she has essentially said in terms of her interview with the radio presenter. And in that interview, if I remember correctly, the interviewer asked her, what's the next step for? Would she remain in the party? And she said, no, she'll walk away. And they're using that as the phrase and the terminology to indicate that she has publicly announced that she would resign from the party, and therefore they're invoking their constitutional process in terms of how this aligns to their constitutional mechanism, and they're invoking that and saying, well, they're rescinding her membership. Now, rescinding her membership, we also need to wait and see what the reaction is of Patricia de Lille to this decision made by the DA in its press briefing this morning. They also citing questions around misconduct in the party bringing the party into disrepute. They're going back to the Steenhuis report and so forth. But clearly this is now an interesting turn of events, because up until this point, Patricia de Lille was still pushing for a public inquiry and so forth in terms of having to have her name cleared and inviting the media to that commission that they had set up, that they are setting up, and there were disputes over certain members and also disputes about whether it could be a public sitting. And so, in many ways, I think now that the DA has pushed the ante, and the question is, what would be the legal ramifications, and what would Patricia de Lille be doing right now? Probably getting legal counsel on what the next steps are in going forward.
Definitely. Sanusha, are there loopholes here? In having a look at that statement that was actually read out, the manuscript of the actual interview that did take place, they're citing that the person who was conducting the interview asked Patricia, would you resign or would you stay a party member? And she said, no, 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 I want to clear my name, and once I've cleared my name, then I will resign. Are there not, any loopholes here? And going forward from a law aspect, is there grounds for her to appeal this decision based on that?
Well, firstly, I'm not a legal expert, so I won't be able to give you any kind of informed opinion and insight into the legal aspects of this. I think this is definitely an area where the legal teams and the legal experts will apply their mind and look at the constitution of the DA and see what sections and subsections of the constitution indicate that in the event that a member of the party indicates in a public interview or in a public setting that they would walk away or resign from the party, then that gives them grounds to initiate these kinds of proceedings and make this announcement. So in that respect, I think you really need to have someone who has a key understanding of the DA's constitutional principles, its processes, and whether or not there are loopholes there. But just from looking at it from more of a broader intuitive perspective, I think that there's definitely questions around the way in which the phrasing of their press briefing could have has been put together. They're now looking at, they're making the prime context in which they have made this decision relating to a debate, an interview she had with a radio person, a radio presenter, where she had indicated openly her intentions. But then, of course, she says until she clears her name. Now, there's different ways in which this could play out. You know, the DA's legal team could say, well, there was all indication that after this she's not staying in the party, so why must we continue with her membership? On the other hand, the Patricia de Lille defense could argue that this is, again, based on until, you know, so there's a way in which the phrasing takes place. And of course, the question is, you know, she's a member until. And so there's all of these different legalities and technicalities that could come into play. But I think seriously now, the ball has been set into motion by the DA. They know they've been hamstrung in particular ways around the Patricia de Lille incident. They're looking for ways and means, and they found one which they feel that they could defend, because they wouldn't have had a press briefing if they felt that there were different ways in which they couldn't defend it. And so they went forward. So, of course, now the question is, what is the next step from the Patricia de Lille camp?
Definitely. In terms of her being a mayor of Cape Town, where does that leave her?
Well, you know, if they are revoking her membership, then obviously this means that her position as mayor is also under scrutiny and therefore would have a particular decision to be made. And she, you know, you can't be. I think it's almost not. It's not necessarily unheard of that if you are a member of a political party, you are the mayor. So you can't be a mayor and not be a member. So I think, technically speaking, that just that contradicts the whole process. So obviously, that would now be under scrutiny. The decision will be made whether she would have to step down. But I think it will depend again on what her response and her legal team response is. How she responds to this, we've got to wait for her press statement in response to the decision taken this morning by the DA, and this could also continue to procrastinate the situation and draw it out even longer. So we kind of see a lot of uncertainty and unpredictability, but it's also the balance is swaying to and fro, and so this kind of keeps the thing in limbo, and we may not see the resolution in terms of going forward.
Well, the situation remains tense but calm in Proche Glen near Soweto following a violent protest yesterday. Enraged homeowners in Extension 29 took to the streets after land grabbers occupied a piece of vacant land on Sunday. They say they'll do all they can in their power to keep the invaders from devaluing their properties. Mangoba Nkunu reports.
Hundreds of land grabbers erected shacks on this vacant piece of land earmarked for housing. On Monday, residents had had enough. Their fury spilled over to the streets. They blockaded the R59, bringing traffic to a standstill, demanding to be addressed by Johannesburg Mayor Herman Mashaba.
He needs to be here, because how can this thing happen in his watch? And he's been keeping quiet. This is the fifth time we had to actually deal with these people.
Shacks, they have a potential of bringing crime. And shacks are going to reduce the value of our houses. These people, they've identified land. Yes, we agree, but they've identified the wrong land at the right time. So this issue of land expropriation of land without compensation is not yet addressed properly.
When a junior official from the housing department came to address these homeowners, he was met with resistance. But when residents regrouped, police were having none of it.
It's our responsibility to protect everyone who is entitled to use the road and those who are entitled to walk along the roads. So we are going to make sure that these people are protected.
While residents remain defiant, they say scenes like this will continue indefinitely until their complaints are listened to. They say they want the city to deploy a security company to guard the piece of land, saying if that doesn't happen, they'll continue with their protest. SABC News at Protea Glen in Soweto.
Well, Social Development Minister Susan Chabangu is expected to visit families affected by a devastating fire which claimed the lives of 8 people at the Taiwan informal settlement in Kailicha on the Cape Flats. The ANC in the Western Cape has conveyed its condolences to the bereaved families who lost their loved ones in the fire. 5 children are among the 8 deceased. Well, the Western Cape Department of Social Development has called on the police to investigate allegations of arson in yesterday's fire. 22 people were displaced after the fire destroyed 4 shacks. According to the community, fires are common in the area. Social workers have been dispatched to assist those affected. ANC MP and former Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Nduduzi Manana, says that he's instructed his lawyer to file extortion charges against the family of his former domestic worker, Catherine Wiru. Well, this follows reports that, of course, she was offered 100,000 rand to withdraw an assault case against Manana. Wiru yesterday withdrew the case. She initially alleged that Manana had tried to push her down the stairs on Sunday at his double-story home in Fourways, north of Johannesburg. In a statement, Manana confirms employing Catherine Wiru as his domestic worker for 2 weeks. He says he realized during Wiru's first week at work that she often gave access to everyone who came to his home. He says he warned her about a possible security risk. Manana says the last straw was when Wiru granted access to his guest without first verifying with him. Manana says he reprimanded Wiru for flouting the rules of the house. Well, in a shocking expose, SABC News can reveal how fake pay slips and bank statements are sold in Johannesburg. The documents, which appear authentic, can be obtained at an internet cafe for just 600 rand. The payslip contains a telephone number of a fake company where a potential creditor can confirm employment. SABC went undercover to investigate.
At this internet cafe in Yeoville, Johannesburg, forged payslips and bank statements are just a print away.
I'm telling you.
We meet this man who tells us about someone who can make things happen for us.
Any way you like it, all of these youth and anybody you ask, his name is Kagis, you say Rasta man. Nobody took a call him. There's nothing. It's a grandmaster.
So we meet Kagiso, known as Rasta, and ask him if he can provide the documents.
I need a 3-month statement.
Yeah.
And a pay slip.
And which bank should I use for?
Which bank can you use? Use
Capitec, yeah.
Is Capitec better?
Yeah, it's better. You can use as many companies as possible, like, you know.
It's Capitec. How much?
Confirmation is 200 on its own.
Yeah. And the other thing?
The bank statement is 200. Pay slips is $100 each on original paper.
Rasta gets down to fabricating a tailor-made payslip and bank statements. He's a busy man, inundated by clients, and after about 30 to 45 minutes, this is what we get for 600 rands. The payslip with a randomly chosen name and surname that we provided. The ID number of an unknown person, working for a company that Rasta chose, in a position of our choice, earning this amount. And 3 months bank statements with what appears to be the official stamp of one of the big banks. So we tested the number on the payslip to confirm if our non-existent employee works at the stated company.
Hello?
Hello?
You still there?
Yes?
Yeah, thank you for holding. Let me check on the system. Amanda, Ngela. All right, wait. Yes, ma'am. Amanda Ngela is our senior supervisor.
Okay, and what is her date of engagement with you?
The date of engagement is the 17th of July 2015.
Oh, all right, all right. You said Amanda is a senior supervisor with you?
Yes, ma'am, she is.
And surprising, the bogus company confirms a bogus employee. And that opens the door to a world of credit, ramping up debt of thousands or even millions of rand, and no one can trace you. Criselda Lewis, SABC News in Johannesburg.
Shocking expose there from Criselda Lewis. Let's have a look now at our question of the day. We're asking, how should government be dealing with land grabs, specifically with the land invasions that have been taking place nationwide and the highlights that they've been making on social media? Well, you can send us your comments on at SABC Newsroom. We'll have a look at some of your tweets and comments and more after the break.
The Western Cape needs national government to fulfill its mandate on ensuring a bulk water supply.
We must ensure that the city of Cape Town never confronts this particular situation again.
The ESCOM is serious about stamping out corruption, which is why the market is now beginning to accommodate us.
Looking at neighboring countries, expecting Botswana just to see partly cloudy skies with a half 34 in Gaborone.
News today at 3 p.m. from Monday to Friday on SABC News.
SABCnews.com is your one-stop digital portal to all the news you need. With a website that is easy to use on mobile, SABC News prides itself in being the primary source of public service content across multiple platforms. Watch live streams of all the big news events on the SABC News YouTube channel, which is one of the most viewed South African YouTube channels globally. And catch up on the best of SABC television and radio news. Follow breaking news on all of the SABC News social media platforms, interact with SABC News on Facebook, and stay connected on Twitter for the latest headlines and real-time updates by our reporters. SABC News, everywhere.
Welcome back to SABC's Newsroom. Well, our question of the day that we've been asking you is, how should government be dealing with the land grabs? We've seen them making headlines all over social media. Just this week alone, residents in Protea Glen, just south of Johannesburg and Soweto, were also complaining about land invaders. Let's have a look at some of your comments and questions as how possibly government can be dealing with this going forward. Well, Temba says, Bajapele, educate the population thoroughly what access to land means, what it may cost South Africans, explain their responsibility and what the government requires of them, explain the law without politicizing it, win their hearts ethically. Olani says if there is any piece of land available, government must avail it to the people who want to use it. #land debate. Oracle or Tinashe Oracle on Twitter says land grabs. Easy solution here. Government should simply allocate amicably the land to all races. Well, that seems quite a few different views coming in on how it should actually take place and the processes and systems. Let's have a look at our poll question. Of course, we do know that the Pan-African Parliament swearing-in session took place yesterday, 5 of which South African members. And now we're asking, should the Pan-African Parliament cease to exist or be given more powers? Well, 27% of you are saying it should cease to exist. 73% said it should be given more powers. Just over 220 votes coming in. Olani says it must be able to debate about the issues that affect the continent, come up with policies and implement them. Barry Martin says yes, the Pan-African Parliament should be given more powers in the near future. And Michael Bigham says it's a great initiative and a step in the right direction, and personally think it needs more powers, but with Julius Malema on board, I foresee change. We all know that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Definitely. Thank you very much for participating in both our polling question this morning. Let's have a look at what's making headlines across the pages in newspapers this morning continentally. Well, in South Africa, the Sowetan reports that former Deputy Minister of Higher Education and convicted woman beater Mduduzi Manana can breathe a sigh of relief as his alleged victim has withdrawn assault charges. In Zimbabwe, the Herald says that the government yesterday offered civil servants a 10% salary increase with effect from the 1st of July and rescinded its decision to bar teachers from going on vacation leave. In Namibia, the reports that a Windhoek prison officer admitted 2 weeks ago that he worked with a prisoner to steal thousands of dollars from a bank account belonging to a jailed murderer, Lazarus Shaduka. And coming up, US President Donald Trump says he will announce his decision on whether to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal today. This and more after the break.
Our stories.
How do I begin?
Our lives. When all seems to fail, we will raise our voices a bit louder for our justice.
I went into absolute shock. My whole body was shaky. I couldn't hold a phone, but there he was. I couldn't believe the nonchalant that they were still in the area 2 weeks later.
And in times when the justice system is not able to help us with our individual battles,
I'm willing to do anything. What are you doing? Nothing. Feeling sorry for yourself? No, it's not an option.
These are our stories on Cutting Edge Channel 404.
Shervin Bricebys, SABC News, New York.
Paul Barber, SABC News, London.
Tebu Mokobo, SABC Ufa Kochamono, Russia.
Neha Punya, SABC News, Saharanpur in Uttar Pradesh in India.
Other than that, I've enjoyed every single moment of it.
Takwana Ngatani, SABC News, Soweto, Johannesburg.
US President Donald Trump says he will announce his decision on whether to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal today. The United Nations has voiced concerns over a surge in violence in 3 states in South Sudan. At least 6 people were killed when warplanes from a Saudi-led coalition bombed Yemen's presidential palace in the center of the Houthi-controlled capital, Sana'a. We understand now that there is a briefing with regards to a sports-related matter in Parliament. Valen Kirtley is going to take us through it.
Thank you very much, Shante. It's something that we wish wasn't associated with sport, but these days it does seem to be the case, and that's the violence that we see in football stadiums and the damage to property. There's a briefing that's currently on by the Premier Soccer League on the violence that we saw at the Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban on the 21st of April, and that was following that Nedbank Cup semi-final between Kaizer Chiefs and Free State Stars. We've got the SAPS as well as the PSL chairman that you can see there on the left of your screen, Dr. Ivan Khoza, that are sitting in Parliament. Let's cross over there now.
And security personnel encircle the players, match officials and technical staff to ensure the safe passage into the changing rooms. An armoured vehicle was brought onto the pitch and blocked off the entrance to the change rooms to protect those inside. Several clashes erupted between spectators and deployed SAPS members and personnel. Sporadic fires were also lit within the stadium. Stun grenades and smoke had to be used to disperse the crowd. The following injuries were reported. It's a total of 21, one of our SAPS members, 1 Metro Police member, 4 private security personnel, and 15 spectators. Damages that were reported were to TV cameras and speakers, stadium chairs were set alight, windows in certain suites were broken. The exact extent of the damage and value involved is still being determined by the stadium management, PSL and Supersport. In respect of case management, there were 4 suspects that were arrested for public violence as per Durban CAS 934/04/2018. The accused 1, Felani Jojisa, arrested on the day. 3 suspects were arrested during the course of the weekend. Accused 2, Mr. Mamela, John Kumalo, and Mr. Madiba. All suspects appeared in the magistrate's court and were granted bail of 1,000, and case was remanded to the 25th of this month. A multidisciplinary task team comprising of the provincial and cluster detectives, crime intelligence, the private security industry, regulating authority, SIRA, and senior public protector from the Durban Magistrates Court has been established and investigations are in progress. 13 images of suspects received from Supersport and are currently being sought. In terms of the recommendations, which forms part of our implementation plan, the conducting of work sessions with all role players on the interpretation of the Sasria Act. Internally, SAPS members at provincial office to ensure compliance in terms of Sasria. The Moses Mabhida Stadium management to upgrade pitch protection. The emphasis on the need of deployment of properly trained private security personnel, and remedial consequent management will be taken against relevant officials in KZN where non-compliance of the Act is determined. Honourable Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you, General. General Sitoli, do you have something to add?
Thanks very much, Honourable Chair. Yeah, just to add beyond the recommendations, what we're actually trying to put forward is that this is a subject of multidisciplinary collaboration, where now as SABs in the implementation, we recommend that we extend it to bring in all the other role players. And further to that, this particular legislation was promulgated before 2010, and it responded well in 2010. But between 2010 and now, there has been a drastic change of modus operandi, which then requires the review of the Act. And our then also recommendation as well to the Minister, we're also joining that part to conduct a feasibility analysis on this particular Act in a multidisciplinary collaborated way, so that we can look at areas of reviewing it as well as maybe just working together. From the SABs, we've also looked into any deviation from back to basics, and we'll be getting our report by this particular, that is Friday. And we're open to working together with all the relevant parties so that we improve the situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, National Commissioner. We will then ask the Director of SIRA, Mr. Shauke, to introduce his delegation.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the Honourable Committee. Chairperson, I'm with Mr. Stefan Badenos, who is our Acting Director Law Enforcement. He will be giving us an overview of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Badenos. You can continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Chairperson, I think I'll have to move to just set up, if you will allow me.
Thank you, sir. You can continue.
Thank you, Honourable Chairpersons, Honourable Members, Minister. My presentation is going to cover a couple of things, just basically the objects of regulating the private security in the event environment. I'm going to highlight some requirements in terms of the SIRA legislation and also deal with a bit of the training standards for the event security officer, and then SIRA subs and stadium management interaction when it comes to private security involvement in event environment. Now, obviously from objects of regulating the security service providers in terms of the SIRA legislation is generally to ensure that the private security industry that's being contracted to render security services act in the public interest during the event, ensure that they're trustworthy and professional, and ultimately provide the fullest protection to the persons that will be attending the premises for sporting, recreational, entertainment purposes, and obviously also to protect the interest of the stadium owners, the event organizers, and the public in general, and also to respect, obviously, the rights of members of the public. In terms of that, there is a code of conduct that all registered security service providers need to comply with that provides, obviously, for the rights of the public when they are confronted by the private security industry. Now, in terms of our legislation and the Act itself, the SIRA Act, it provides that everyone that's involved in providing a service aimed at ensuring order and safety on the premise used for sporting, recreational, entertainment, or similar purpose fall under the definition of a security service provider, which will then require registration with SIRA. Now, there's a number of categories in terms of the SIRA Act that needs to register with us. In the event environment, that will include your guarding sector and your close protection officers that at times are also involved. We also have a category, your response security, where private security companies will employ a particular group of individuals that are required to respond to certain incidents. And then your event security. Now, in terms of the SIRA Act, it's the security officers, stewards, and marshals. We're familiar with the SASRIA and the definition of stewards and marshals, but in terms of our legislation, we do find that these stewards or marshals are there to ensure a safe and secure event, and therefore they will fall within a definition of a security service providers. And then you do have the category of your control room operators, especially CCTV, and then everyone involved in installation, servicing, repair of security equipment at events. And in a stadium environment, it's usually your CCTV, your access control, bomb detection, metal detection, X-ray inspection. All those categories are required to be legally registered with us, and that includes your consultants and then your car guard sector. Now, as far as the training requirement is concerned for security service providers, it provides, in terms of the SIRA legislation, a specific curriculum for the event security officers, and that includes anyone involved in doing a bodily or physical search at the point of entry, Also your security reaction team, as I mentioned before, and then your CPOs and persons handling darks at a special event, and then anyone who forms part of a field control or crowd control team at the special event must complete what we call a special events training curriculum. In a nutshell, what that curriculum entails is obviously the security officers need to be trained in the normal guarding courses or the grade training, but the special event curriculum then includes public relations, which is a very much core in the special events environment, because the security officers are not necessarily in the event environment doing security-related work. They are very much involved in public relations and trying to deal with conflict situation, which we generally refer to as verbal judo, without a confrontation approach. They also trained in a module dealing with bombs, explosive and firearms, identifying it, including firefighting, prevention and protection. And that is really, the curriculum deals with the link up with the JOC in that particular environment. Two-way radio communication, legal aspects, because there are at stages also citizens arrest made by the security service providers, and then very importantly, occupational health and safety and first aid. And in an event environment, especially in the stadium, is obviously the link up with the VOC and ensure that necessary treatment is given. Then access control and then search procedures and techniques. These are the training curriculums that's specifically relevant to the event security officer. Now, in terms of SIRA subs and stadium management interaction, generally, you know, our legislation first of all require everyone involved in the security at a special event to be legally registered, and then it placed obligations in terms of Section 38(3)(g) on the owners or the event organizers to ensure that they only use and contract with legally registered security businesses and security officers. Section 16(3) obviously of SASRIA also provides for, in the case of medium high-risk events, that the security business and security officer details are made known to SIRA in order for us to do a verification prior to the event that the business is in fact legitimate and the security officers are legally registered and trained. So we do provide that information to the South African Police Service as well as stadium management during the planning committees. Other compliance issues obviously also highlighted there, and in most cases, you know, what we do is we provide a letter of good standing or certificate of good standing, which highlights the SIRA obligations, SIRA registration, training status, and also the details of directors, etc. We also oversee compliance at events, not at all events. There are a high number of events taking place across the country, but we do, you know, at times do inspections and investigations prior and during the event. From a strategy perspective, obviously, conducting inspections during the event to verify compliance is not ideal. Because it's a bit counterproductive to be there and determine or find that security officers are not legally registered and trained because the event is actually already taking place. A very important thing for us, and which we also advocate to stadium management and South African Police Service, is that security officers must carry their SIRA ID cards at all times during the event to demonstrate their level of registration as well as their level of training. We've had some communication and notices issued to SAFA, SARU, Cricket South Africa, just to highlight the obligation in terms of our legislation to sensitize the major sport codes as far as the event security is concerned and the obligations of the private security industry. During 2016, we also conducted a research paper on the event sector and made some recommendations, which I'll highlight a little bit in terms of the improved interaction and compliance. I think, you know, first of all, you know, SIRA's involvement or participation in the ESSPCs are not always taking place. We're not always invited. So I think there can definitely be improvement in that manner in our involvement at the regional planning stage, which includes obviously then the compliance verification of the business security office prior to the event, and where we can then issue a letter of good standing for the event organizers. I think generally there is a plan, or let me say a timing challenge when it comes to the event requirements as far as SASRIA is concerned. For instance, in a high-risk event, the SASRIA legislation highlights that the ESSP or the planning committee must notify CIRA 60 days prior to the event taking place on who's the actual security that's going to be deployed. But I think in practice that rarely happens, that these applications to classify the event, is done 60 days prior to the event actually taking place. One of the things that we've done for some stadiums in South Africa, and I think is very core, is to develop an accreditation system for both business security officers prior to the event. What we found in certain stadiums is that at the day of the deployment, the security officers that were screened prior to the event is not necessarily security officers that arrives for the event. And the way that's a particular challenge, because then we find security officers that are not adequately trained in the special events curriculum. So what we've done at certain stadiums, we've developed a accreditation system where security officers are accredited on a huge scale by the stadium management, and only those that's been accredited on their systems, that's been verified by CIRA as registered and adequately trained, is then allowed to be used. And I think that is something that we need to look at doing for all stadiums going forward. Generally, cooperation with security and business in respect of deployments, as I mentioned, one of the challenges that we do have is, although we do the screening of the security business and security officers, we do find that at the day of the event, the security officers that we screen are not necessarily the ones that are there. And I think, obviously, one of the challenges now, our focus is at the sport codes, and especially, your bigger sport codes like soccer and rugby and cricket. But, there is obviously an obligation in terms of the CIRA legislation for all events, where, in South Africa, that where private security is going to be used, that they need to comply. One of the challenges as well that we are finding in terms, especially when it comes to non-compliance by the private security businesses, but also stadium owners and stadium management or event organizers, is the cost issue. Usually we do find non-compliance in terms of the CIRA legislation is driven by profit maximization, where there is labor obligations in terms of labor law for the cost of a security officer that's being deployed at particular events. So they do try to circumvent the cost aspect by changing the job title of the individual and calling them something else. And that they are not security officers. They, for instance, this concept of the stewards, sometimes the concept of the marshals, sometimes they call them something else in order to avoid calling them security officers, which then results an increased cost for the stadium owners as far as the payment of the security officers are concerned. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barnos. Mr. Chauke, do you have something to add?
Thank you, Chairperson. I just wanted to also add that maybe we take this opportunity to condemn the attack of security officers during sporting events because they are there to protect members of the public. As we have already said, Chairperson, that our role is merely to ensure that there is proper oversight over the conduct of private security industry. We are confirming that we are also investigating the incidents in this particular incident at Moses Mabhida, and I must say that we are also working with the other agencies, SABC, and everyone that is involved. Our investigations are focused on the deployment on that day, as well as the compliance, as well as the training of security officers. So we hope that we will cooperate with everyone later on when the proper public investigations take place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chauke. At this stage, I'm going to give over again to my co-chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the leaders of police, to you, General. Now, honorable members, I'm suspect. Please. This is the time for discussions. In our discussions, as the presentations are presented, let's identify the gaps. Let's propose in order that we must have a way forward. I would love that we must do that, but anything that you want to ask, but at the end, let's propose the way forward on this presentation. In some presentation, they've already identified the gaps and the problems and the solutions. Honorable Minister, at 12, she's asking to be released. And honorable members, can I break the protocol? Because all of us in the department, these presentations are the first and foremost when we're together. Can I ask that Minister, is she wanting to comment on the presentations? Because when we discuss, she is not going to be here, or maybe is she leaving UDG on behalf of herself? I wanted not to close the door for our minister because it's going to attend another commitment.
Just on that point, Chair.
Yes.
Sir, I have to make this statement. The Deputy Minister of Police was here. He found it necessary to leave us. Now you're telling us that the Minister of Sport is also going to leave us, and you're doing oversight on the political heads of the two departments. Where does that leave South Africans after such a tragedy? Thank you.
I'm saying, Honorable Member, the Minister is saying that at 12. It's not yet 12 now. So that's why I'm asking the permission that if 12 comes, Honorable Mabik.
Thanks, Chair.
Are you responding on what Honorable is asking, or are we in our discussions? I wanted to hear from the Office of the Minister. What do you want to say?
No, Chairperson, the comments by Honorable Filtan have reminded me of the comments that were made by the Deputy Minister of Police. I don't think it was correct for him to say, to demand to speak because staying longer here was a waste of time, according to him. So I think we did not take that thing.
Can you put your view correctly? He didn't say waste of time. So it's your words, it's not the Deputy Minister.
It is his. He said he wants to speak because he doesn't have time. He doesn't want to waste time. You can, if it is recorded, you can go and check. That is what he said. But I think for...
Waste time to listen as what I was sharing, we have a right to hear. The Deputy Minister said, because he's going to go for another meeting, it doesn't waste time not to contribute. Let me give him chance. So I don't know whether that interpretation to you was wasting time to listen to us. Because even in his contribution, he put it clear that all is not well. So, honorable members, maybe we're taking this time now that this 12, can I hear from the department, when I give you the chance to talk, you will be raising the concerns of the Deputy Minister and the Minister, because now we are not yet contributing on the issue. You must chip in and put your input on that. I'm trying to handle the meeting that we must not go outside the parameter of our questions. You must indicate and say your feeling about the leaving of Deputy Minister. And Minister, when I open, I've told you that he's going to a subcommittee, which is in the ministerial position of herself. The Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I think we will be around to capture the essence of the deliberations, because The invited guests are here. They've made their presentations and will input as and when. Thank you.
Honorable members, with due respect, this is your time to ask questions and discuss. Honorable Mhlongo, Honorable Bergman, Honorable Muteka, welcome back in the committee. Honorable Mabika, or Honorable Chaisa, Honorable Fildan, Honorable no, I did a bit. Honorable and Colin Bele and Honorable Mulat, we are calling them comrades, Honorable Mulat and Honorable Leader Mbula. Yeah, you were supposed to give me the name of our colleagues. Honorable Ms. Musi, Honorable Bev, oh, I was wondering, Honorable Ralhom, on that order, honorable members. Thank you so much. Your hand is up, Honorable Chairperson? Okay.
No, I'll comment at after.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thanks, Chair. We welcome the presentation, but I want to state clearly that PSL's presentation, you made us difficult for us to do an oversight work on your presentation. To be honest enough, I didn't get exactly what is it all about, PSL. It was not clear, your presentation, and you have only synopsis, and which is confusing, but I have direct question because this is on the public domain. We know exactly what happened. Chair, I think all sectors stated clearly that they did not adhere to SARCIA. It is clear that your presentation clearly stated that. And this is not a first mesh that we had. And the direct question to PSL, you had your internal investigation regarding Pirates and Chiefs saga, which happened in 2017. Can you tell us more about that? What were the recommendations? Because you had internal investigation. Now, what are the challenges to PSL? On your presentation, you clearly stated that practically it's impossible for you to implement SARCIA. What are the challenges? Tell us exactly what are the challenges on the Act. Did PSL fail to adhere to FIFA and SAFA guidelines, yes or no? If no, why this tragedy happened? I wanted to find out because there's a capacity of 55,000 at Mabida Stadium, and there were plus minus 26 attendees on the day, according to the presentation. And only 697 officials or POs were present. Let's say on that day there were 55. How many officials are required to monitor the event? There were 26, you only had 697, 26,000. Now the capacity is 55. Now what are your guidelines to monitor an event? How many officials per 20 or per 100? I need a clear understanding exactly, because there was a failure of visibility of officials or of men in blue or of security. It was not, they were not visible. It is clearly there was a failure. Now I needed to know the stats exactly. Out of 55,000, if it is fully capacitated, how many officials you have? If it's at present, it was 26, but you only had 670 something. Oh, sorry, let me quote the number. I don't want to misquote it again. 697 as per your presentation. But SAFA went all out in the media to say officials or security officers were 55. What exactly is the number? It was 550 according to PSL. The sub says 697. What exactly is the number of officials on that day? Now, I wanted to find out, and I'm not exactly undermining the colonel. Did you attend all meetings, Colonel? Is he here? I think he's one of the delegates. Through you, Chair. There was a planning meeting. Did the assign or the deployee in charge attend all plenary meetings? Did private security team attend all plenary meetings? I wanted to find out, you are saying there was a medium, you call it medium risk, that you were aware of before the game. What mechanism or what strategy did you come up with? Because you knew that Chiefs fans were not happy regarding the coach. You knew. What mechanism did you come in place with, or a plan of action, so to say, on that day? I think, Chair, another issue that I wanted, crowd control was poorly done. And your presentation points fingers. SAB's presentation clearly states that they were not properly trained. One of the recommendations in future. Why now? I think you misquoted. 2010, there were recommendations of the tragedy of Isoka 2010 FNA. It was Ellis Park. But it was not even implemented. Why now, this recommendation? Why after? I'm waiting to hear, maybe, Chair, I'll wait for the second bite, because I wanted to find out what are the recommendations from PSL, firstly, that were done internally. Because, yes, according to the minister, we wanted to have an inquiry, the first inquiry for FNB. Now, it was shut down, well, it's stadium management today, I'm told. But PSL didn't want to come on board. What was the reason for PSL not to come on board? And Chair, I'll request to hold the questions for now, and I'll come with the second bite.
Thank you, Honorable Mhlongo. Honorable Bergman.
Thanks, Chair. If I remember correctly, if I'm not mistaken, on the PSL side, the home team is required to, there's a responsibility on the home team in terms of security. Now, Kaizer Chiefs, of course, would be that home team, and in a statement I suggested that maybe Kaizer Chiefs should also be attending this very same meeting. I would have been interested to know what, knowing the threats, and especially the threats against the coach, what they would have done more to prevent what took place. The image for me, which I think says it best, is this Facebook image of the crowd storming the fence. Now, the fence is holding the crowd back, and yet there's still only 3 security guards. Now, I can take that on the day it might be the three security guards that weren't properly, properly accredited, but it goes on for quite a while. And you see this storming of the fence and storming of the fence, and there's still no reaction. Now, this is obviously before the armored vehicle got onto the pitch. But if the police are so, on paper it seemed that they understood everything that was going to take place. They understood the threats. They were well prepared. On paper it looked like we had enough staff. On paper it looked like we understood every threat and eventuality. But then you look at the response times, and that doesn't correlate with what we've got on paper. So I'm back to this image of the pushing of the fence and watching these poor 3 or 4 security guards, seeing these faces coming at them, and there's just this little fence protecting them, and you still don't see that police reaction. So I'm interested specifically to find out what was the response time at that identification of the pushing of that fence in that section. How long did it take for police to respond to that specific area? I must say, I do commend the police on that swift arrest of the one suspect kicking the head of the security guard twice. But I note that there's a turnaround in PSL's suggestion on this commission of inquiry, and I'd like to understand. I know it's been explained in a bit of a turnaround, but why are we supporting this commission over the last commission, and why did we withdraw that commission? Court doesn't scare us. You've got the power to call a commission, and the ministers now, unfortunately, well, I see the sports ministers here. I'd like to understand this possibly, had we kept the commission, had this commission been on the forefront, I wonder if such a tragedy would have taken place. So I'd like to know what was this turnaround and change of heart that made us first withdraw this commission, and why the change of heart from PSL all of a sudden to support such a commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Bergman. Honourable Muteka.
Thank you, Chairperson. And also, I also appreciate for you for welcoming me. The Labour Committee have stolen me from you for some time due to those bills. And Chairperson, my questions are like this. How many actual supporters were in the stadium against the 30,000 capacity stated in the presentation by the police? And again, on the day, Chairperson, the supporters invaded the pitch against the barrier of security and all that. What went wrong? How did they pass through the barrier? How did they pass through the shield? Another question will be 30,000 supporters in the stadium. I assume there were 30,000 against the ratio of this 697 security personnel. Is it enough in terms of security regulations and in terms of planning prior to the event? Or was it enough, that 697? Although PSL is saying a certain number of security, but let's take it from the police, 697. Is it enough against 30,000? And if not, why did you allow it to happen? If it is, then what went wrong? Chairperson, from this 697 personnel, security personnel, there is about 14 divisions or companies which these people are reporting to. They are not reporting and controlled by one unit, where you can say the supervision is common and the directive is one. They are reporting to different, about 14. I'm saying 14 because they are all 15, but I don't include medical service. So it is about 14 companies, if I can call it, that these people are reporting to. Is that not also opening a room for confusion that can lead to something like this? Because really, if we are about to manage one event, but there are many groups reporting to many companies, but the common purpose is to make sure there is security and safety in the stadium. To me, it can end up causing that confusion, because even the issue of accountability, it becomes loose and broad. Because now, for now, at this stage, which security company can we say you are now accountable? Account to what happened. This one will point, no, this one didn't follow. This one didn't comply. Then you will end up each one pointing fingers to each one. I don't know, the security experts will correct me. That's my thinking as a politician or as a human being, or however. My last question, Chairperson, is the issue of we hear there is about four supporters arrested, went to court and all that. Are we not dealing with the symptom or the end results of their wrongdoing? Where is the cause? From management side, security management side, who is arrested? Who is arrested already? Because these people we have arrested already, they went through you. They passed you to get to the beach. Because if a goal is scored, né? There is defense there to account. How did this striker pass through you? We are not going to punish only the goalkeeper. How did it pass you as a defense? So even here we are asking, from planning, implementation, management. Where's management accountability? Which one of the security personnel management is arrested as a result? We cannot only deal with the outcome without going back to the root cause, because the cause of the whole thing is planning and also bridging of Sasria. So, and I don't think the supporter have done that. The supporter got emotional and went through where there's no security. Obviously, if you can run to the pitch, there's no security. Then who was supposed to put security there to the barrier? Did the supporters carry AK-47s and pass so that they can pass there? No. So management accountability. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Moteka. Honorable Mabika.
Thanks, Chairperson. Again, I think, let me also start by welcoming the presentation. And Chairperson, I think it is proper for me to assure our visitors today that we have not invited them to conduct an inquiry. We invited them so that we share ideas, because this is becoming a crisis. It happened some years ago, it happened in 2017 at FNB. It also has happened in Moses Mabhida. We know they are concerned. We don't want to be seen as pointing fingers, because we know that the PSL cannot be happy with what is happening, as well as SABC. But we want to find out as to whether you are doing enough to ensure that this comes to an end. And if there are challenges, how can we as government assist towards ensuring that it comes to an end? Just two questions, though, Chairperson, is to check from PSL, because you have got these beautiful stadiums in South Africa, but I need to check if you have a standardized safety standards, if I may call it that way, to prevent spectators from freely entering the stadiums. The reason I'm asking this question, Chairperson, is because you will find that at FNB, maybe it's not easy for spectators to just walk into the pitch, but you go elsewhere, it becomes so easy. So that is why I'm asking if there are no standards to say all the stadiums should be meeting this kind of a standard in order to prevent access for the spectators to enter the pitches. And the second one and the last one, Chairperson, I don't want to be long. We have heard about the, we are not very clear, you'll educate us about these risk categories, how you categorize matches. It is said after PSL had applied to the subs, it is the police that decided this match is going to be, it's going to be a medium risk match. So one is not sure whether today, after what has happened, if subs can still maintain that it was correct to give the Kaizer Chiefs Free State Stars Nedbank Cup semi-final match a medium, because I think that goes with the number of or the kind of security that should be provided in a kind of that, in a category that is given. The reason I'm asking this question, Chairperson, is because they gave this medium risk after Kaizer Chiefs officials had gone to an extent of notifying the police that, be aware, our fans, you know, Kaizer Chiefs is supported by so many people. Our fans are not happy with the coach. And we have seen that in some of the games, they've been throwing things because they were not satisfied with the coach. But medium risk was given. That is why I want to check as to, are they still happy, or they can still maintain to say, yes, that kind of a match that was to be played deserved that medium risk safety, or whatever they call it. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mabika. Honorable Njaisa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Co-Chairpersons. Minister and Deputy Minister of Police in absentia. I just want, first off, to add to my voice now to what was said by Honorable Mabika here. You know, Co-Chairpersons, that what was said by the Deputy Minister was not very much palatable. Because when you say you don't want to waste time, it doesn't go well. I'm sure he was trying to say he has got an urgent matter or a commitment to attend to. Not to say this one is not important. So it was not good, but now I'm sure he did not mean it, Honorable Cash. Mr. Deputy did not mean that. But now, let me start off now with the supporters club. Chincha Golova, it was well good before when your management did attend now to supporters club, because most of the things have got to be explained there. If you can just go to basics, then now you pay attention now to these supporters clubs, whereby now the members, or the card-carrying members now, would be explained exactly what is expected of them. Then going to the matches now, it would do well. And this should be supposed to be taken or to be done by all clubs, because you should start there. Yes, I heard the Deputy Minister saying now it start the schools. It is true, because this behavior of not tolerating laws now should at least now try to be kept at schools. But now it was important, now it's also important now for the teams or for the clubs now to pay attention or to care very much of the supporters clubs. Then you teach and you explain and you tell these people what is expected to the supporters clubs. Coming now to crime intelligence. You know, I wonder what is that was done by the crime intelligence, because it was well known even before the match that the supporters, Kaizer Chiefs supporters, were going for the head of Steve Kombela. And even there now, there were threats and everything said about him. That was known. And I'm one of those now who did attend that. And we were nearly beaten up by these guys when they were going up. We were sitting the suits there. They were saying, we should start with these people. They are the cause of this. So I think now the crime intelligence should have known this. That something was going to happen there. Then I don't take it down when you say there were no history of cloud clashing in that stadium, in that venue of Moses Mapida. But the people, same teams, Kaizer Chiefs is one of the teams. So how can you talk about the venue, that there were no clashes, if the same supporters are going to attend it, that the supporters that perhaps now would cause problems there? So it was not supposed not to be said, no, there were no clashes before. That is not well taken. And again, for the PSL security, just to send one PSL security, because you're responsible for that match, but you just send one person, one security member. How does that happen when you are responsible? So it is your sole responsibility. Lastly, now I heard about the criteria that you're using when you're selecting these companies, private companies now to go there. But my worry here is that you get these security companies that they are registered and they have got all this. But let us come to the individuals. Are the actual individuals being trained how to handle, to tackle these matters at the stadium? Because if umbrella-wise, the company will say, we've got all these who are registered and so on. But now how do you know that the individuals that are going to be set in the security are properly trained? So I want to check on that, if I can just get a response on that. Yeah, most of the questions have been covered by friends. And Honorable Co-Chairperson, now I'll be leaving for another committee. Perhaps Honorable Filton, and I will get responses on my behalf. Thank you very much.
There's nothing like that. It's Honorable Filton.
Thanks very much, Chair. We appreciate the fact that the relevant stakeholders saw it fit to come on invitation to Parliament. This is where accounting takes place, and contrary to what the Deputy Minister intimated he would wish to see not happening, naming people. In Parliament, we don't do that, otherwise we would not be doing our job well. If when we do oversight, we shy away from saying, so-and-so, you are responsible for this consequence. That's how we work as Parliament. I just want to clear that for starters. That's how we work. It shouldn't muzzle us. This was not a Cosmos versus Stellenbosch FC match. This was Kaizer Chiefs, a big name in football in South Africa, and the stakes were high on the day. So my first question to the police is, what criteria do you use when you are going to grade a certain risk? That on the day, it transpires that you fell short. I'll deal with the police first for my own protection, and then I'll deal with PSL for my own happiness. Now, what did Kaizer Chiefs supporters had indicated that they were not happy with the coach. Now, that was a clear signal that something could happen, as some of my colleagues have already intimated that there has been this build-up. Now, what did you do when you got this piece of intelligence? Did you get it? What did you do about it? Did it perhaps have the effect of influencing you to upscale the level of the risk of the match and thereafter possibly draw in more personnel, beef up your security, so to speak? Number 3, what is the standard proportion of security personnel to the people at the stadium? On the day, apparently it was something like 1 to 37. I'm not factoring in issues like their capacity, space within which they were supposed to run, and so on. Just the pure numbers. What is the standard, expectation there? Number 4, with so many security institutions, I include the police here, who was responsible for coordinating operations, and what mode of communication? I'm looking here at effectiveness of communication. What sort of communication was used on the day to make sure that there was effective, coordination of the operations on the day? Have you so far established that that coordination did take place, and with what effect? Why on such a day, when you are expecting so many tens of thousands of people, why open up only 18 gates instead of 40? Because there the tension begins to build. You expect it. People are very enthusiastic to support their team. And you expect them to chew for quite a long time before they get in. They want to get into the game. Why open only 18? And did anybody see the build-up of numbers on average? In other words, how long would a spectator stand in the queue? Because that's where pressure begins to build up. Who is responsible for ensuring that deployed security personnel are properly and appropriately qualified for the job on the day? Does such a person issue a certificate on the day to say, yes, I clear the security, to say they are appropriately qualified, the numbers are okay, we may proceed with the event? Because rather than losing one South African life, an event could either be delayed or postponed. That is the start time, if you see that there's a high risk. That's why I want to know if a certificate does get issued to say, clearance certificate, here it is, we are comfortable from a security perspective, to PSL. Or before I move over to PSL. My impression about the police, and this is why I reacted the way I did when even the Deputy Minister found it necessary to leave us alone here, is that by and large, our police are reactant rather than responsive. If you look at the Ngobo case, that policeman who was drawn in, he just reacted. He heard that there was something happening. He just moved into the mouth of the lion, and he was swallowed. His life is gone. Because that's how quite a number of times SABs operate. They just react instead of respond. When you're going to respond, you would prepare yourself in so many other ways, which are not even visible for that matter. Then you are reacting. But if you're reacting, oh, there's a bomb there, you'd go headlong, and you are into it. It took some time for us as spectators to see. I was not there, just on TV, to notice the police when that guy was on the ground and being mauled by disappointed spectators. It took some time. You can count the number of seconds when you look at that. And that's what I mean by saying you merely react rather than respond. State of readiness for an event of that nature, for an eventuality of that nature, to PSL. Before today, the 8th of May, what steps did you take to make sure that there is sufficient compliance with SASREA before today? I didn't say before that event. You have already had the event. Have you since perhaps, either before the event or after the event, taken any steps to make sure that there is sufficient compliance with SASREA? Number 2, what amendments to SASREA do you want? I'm asking this question in my capacity as a lawmaker, and we would like to come to the party and assist the citizens of South Africa where there is a legislative gap. Lastly, on infrastructure. Does the infrastructure in that stadium comply with the needs of the day. In other words, effective playing of the match, as well as the security, which I think are the critical elements of the events, in the events of the day. Does it? If not, have you pointed this out to the relevant authority, which I think is the municipality? And what has been their response so far? I thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. Lastly, I want to say we appreciate the fact that the Minister for Sport is with us, and we hope she will have an opportunity and take it to respond to our questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Fulton. Honorable okay, it's you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think everyone in this room should be thanking their lucky stars that we didn't see a repeat of the 2001 Ellis Park catastrophe, which killed 43. So it didn't. But 3 questions to the SAPS, 1 to Sarah. To the SAPS, what exactly is the protocol in the run-up to a match of this caliber, and how many planning meetings were held before the actual match in question, and how many of those were attended by the person in charge, Lieutenant Colonel Sugamani? Now, there are reports going around that he only stepped in at the very end, at the last meeting, after all the planning had been done, and it strikes me that that would have put him at a massive disadvantage in terms of command and control. So I need an explanation for that. Then, where is a copy of the cut and paste operational plan, which my information tells me was only signed off on Sunday the 22nd, the day after the match of the 21st of April? Now, that, in my mind, would be equivalent to fraud. If indeed the operational plan was only signed off after the match, it says to me that there is a major cover-up underway. I want to know if that plan was ever, as it should, sent to and seen by the National Police Commissioner. Then, the police, you have agreed to and gave permission to have the 3 massive events held on the same day, in close proximity, and from what I gather and have been told, you had insufficient police to handle the day. And yet the turnstiles were open on speed before the game. That speaks to the possibility that no searching was being done. The crowd control, because they only had a few gates open, that tells me you had insufficient staff, either police or the security staff, to open the gates, which should have been opened. And there seems to have been zero crowd control, either before or after the fact, after the match. Now, on top of all of this, your crime intelligence decided this was a medium-risk event. The outcome speaks to a massive failure on their part, something we have come to expect from them over the last 8 years, but there's a new broom at the top sweeping, and I think we need an explanation. And finally, to Sarah, the security company, and those are the members that we saw in the middle of the field. It's apparently an 18-month-old company based in KwaMashu, and we heard at great length what training is offered by Sarah, and there was a lot of explanations that went on, but I want to know what training the specific security members at the stadium on the 21st of April actually had in terms of crowd management, access control, and security. It's fine to tell us what Sarah does, but did the members of this company, had they gone through, did they have the certificates? Had they passed the relevant courses? And I ask this because I watched as various of them picked up chairs in the middle of the pitch and threw them at the pitch invaders. So I'd quite like to know if this is in your security training manual, your crowd control manual, What gave them the idea that throwing chairs was going to achieve anything? My guess is they had zero training from you. And then the question, obviously, is how did they get the job? Because it spoke to the whole world who saw that film footage. They hadn't a clue what they were doing.
Thank you, Honorable Mbele.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you for the presentations. Just three quick questions from my side. The first, and they're all to the SAPS. The first relates to the crime intelligence issue that was raised by Honorable Kola Barnard. We saw in the presentation that pitch invasion had been indicated as a possible threat. So the natural question that arises is, so did the operational planning then make explicit tactical provision for that possibility becoming or manifesting into reality? Because if that tactical provision had been made, then one assumes that the security officers, both SAPS and privates, on the ground would have had some template to work with when that started happening in order to mitigate. And we didn't see any evidence of that. So having been alerted that there was that possibility, was it then catered for in the operational plan? Or was it a case of, as I suspect, we think it might happen, but gee, we hope it doesn't, let's cross fingers, you know? Because that would be a major gap and shortfall. Secondly, on the matter of the actual signing of the operational plan, that information about the signing happening post the facts also came across my radar. So my request would be, with the support of the co-chairs, if we could please have that documentation forwarded to the two committees so the members can inspect that for ourselves as part of ongoing oversight on the matter. And then finally, just to verify, and perhaps the acting provincial police commissioner might be able to give some clarity and insights on this. Is it true that there were also two other major events happening in Durban on that day, and thus police personnel resources were actually stretched too thin over the eThekwini Metro, which basically means that the allocation of officers at the stadium was not based on or reflective of the actual need, given the size and the risk category of the events, but was actually primarily curtailed by the fact that SAPS has a shrinking budget for paying overtime to members, and that the members who were allocated were not the numbers required, and that the deployment that we would have needed was not sufficient. Was this structurally, systemically impacted by the ongoing budget baseline reduction and fiscal crisis that SAPS is facing? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mbele. Honorable Mabija. No, I'm sorry, no. Oh, okay, no. Honorable Mulubatse. I'm sorry, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Chairperson. My first one goes to SAPS. Only 4 arrests were made so far. When do we see more arrests taking place? My second one goes to PSL. Why was there no clear information on your announcement of the security guard that we saw that was beaten in the pitch? At 1 minute, it was a male, the other minute, it was a she, and so on. Why was this confusion? My third one goes with, whilst we know the police are assigned with a job of protecting us all as citizens. Do clubs not have an obligation of providing some form of security at the stadiums, especially the hosting club? My last one goes to Sarah. In your preliminary investigations, if they were done so far, were these security guards that were at the stadium on the day in question, were they all properly registered with Sarah? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Monrabatse. Honorable Make. Okay.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for your presentations. My first question goes to SABS. 20 POPs members, 33 VISPOL members, 10 crime intelligence members. Were the members enough for 26,000 people? My second one goes to PSL. One PSL security. Why did you let one PSL security attend the event? Because that event was big, the plenary meetings. My second question goes to SABS. We heard in passages that SABS members didn't attend plenary meetings. Is it true? My third question goes to Mr. Mtaung. Kaizer Chiefs supporters were not happy with their coach. What have you done? And Mr. Mtaung, what were you expecting from your supporters on that day? My fourth question, it's about the medium risk. How do you know that this was the medium risk or high risk? Or thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next member, Honorable Mapir.
Thank you, Chairperson. What I want to say here and now is something different from the questions that I'm hearing, because I'll support my statement by saying I should think this football supporters mindset is skewed. And why? Because we do not care about changing their mindset. Secondly, we have drug laws. SABS is busy trying to arrest them because those children, not even say children, those supporters, when they come in being high. Any little thing, it irritates them and they must act. Why? Because of those drugs. And the drug lords are busy making money on the expense of our people here in South Africa. And drug lords, most of them, do not belong here. And they don't take drugs that they give our children and our people to come to the stadium and do hooliganism that we are experiencing. And therefore, I would like to appeal to all the people from different institutions here, including the football club leadership, including ourselves as public representatives. It's our duty, all of us, from the ground up to the top, the national, from down up to national, all different political parties, to change our modus operandi and do the right thing, to come up with wise and strong and effective strategies to change the mindset of our masses, more especially the football club supporters. Because you can come here and tell us this and that, and we ask 1, 2, 3. You come back responding, hey, 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 hey. And then what next? Something is going to happen again before we can even curb changing the mindset of those supporters. Because a human being, as I'm seated like this, the human mind is unpredictable. When we are born being blank like a new chalkboard. But what comes into our minds? If we don't assist, we are not going anywhere. Because after this meeting, then what? Maybe I don't understand the language for the reason we are here. We can listen and do all these things, go up, sideways, and down. But if the mindset of our supporters is not changed from a negative connotation to a positive connotation about the facts of this football, what do I say? This football, the attitude towards that, you win or lose, life goes on. And if we break, we destroy what we have, because I'm high on drugs. When the effect is gone, I've got no stadium to go to. And the name of the football club is gone. So Womtaung and the other people who have responsibility, let's come together and have one strategy. I don't know how that can happen, but that is the only way to curb this hooliganism in the stadiums. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Honorable Musi.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and let me thank the presence of the Minister as well, and everybody, Chair. Chairperson, we actually, the last time, had requested, like you said, that we want to do an oversight at Moses Mabhida for the sole reason, or for reasons of wanting to check the damages, but again, check the structure of Moses Mabhida. I remember that we made an example the last time that, look, with FNB, it is not easy. In as far as, I'll be corrected in a case I'm wrong, when there are seats like this, just be between the seats and the pitch, there is some sort of a hole that is there. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I think with that, it sort of, prohibits anybody who would want to quickly jump into the pitch. But I think it is not the same with I know that these incidents are not happening for the first time. I remember at a certain point I was at FNB and it happened exactly that, but that time it was between Kaizer Chiefs and Pirates, whereby the spectators, for them, in order to access the pitch, they had to break the billboard and put it in between so that they can jump into that what you call. So I'm saying, it looks like it is not the same with Moses Mapira, but we wanted to check that and verify that. Now, somebody else who's going to tell us whether we are wrong, those who are familiar with the structure of stadia. Chairperson, I just want to check, Chairperson, any of the three would answer this, as to whether there was a real a caucus for planning in between perhaps SIRA, stadium management, the police, a tangible one, not sort of an imagined or presumed type of a caucus. They will tell us, Chairperson. But Chairperson, this goes directly to SIRA. We nearly saw someone else dying there, you know, of the security personnel who was there, who was kicked and hit with chairs, plastic chairs. Now I want to check with them during their training, what measures do they have for their members in cases where, you know, their lives are threatened, like the one that we saw. Chair, that's another question. The other question that I want to pose, Chairperson, perhaps to the chairman, is to ask them as to whether the affected club did, you know, go through, you know, those people who stormed the stadium to check as to whether they are registered members or were just elements of criminality or criminals. They will tell us, Chairperson. But Chair, I also want to indicate that, you know, like I said, that these things are not happening for the first time. They've happened many times. And I don't know, I don't remember of an instance where I heard of a club owner who you know, publicly condemn such issues, strongly condemning them without necessarily having to fear that perhaps would anger their fans or supporters. I want to make an example, Chairperson. You know, one day I heard of one coach, Stuart Baxter. He was coaching Kaizer Chiefs, and there was a player who is no more with Kaizer Chiefs at the moment. And every time that player would touch the ball, the spectator would go like, boo. And that was a Kaizer Chiefs player. And I remember I saw Stuart Baxter condemning that, strongly so. And even going to a point of saying, I as a coach would not allow some sort of a stupid fan to tell me what to do with, you know, with my players. You'd remember that Stuart Baxter loved Kingston Carter very much. Now, I'm waiting, Chairperson, to hear such a strong word from any of the club owners. I'm not speaking of Kaizer Chiefs only in this case, but I speak of all other clubs that might be involved or would do this similar case. The last, Chairperson, sort of a comment. You know, I would agree with people who say that whoever is a law enforcer should have been ready because they knew that this was not a small event. And I would like to add it by saying that they also knew that, you know, we as South Africans, and I'm including myself, we are a violent nation, Chairperson, and I still stand to be convinced otherwise that South Africans are not a violent nation. I stand to be convinced. We are a violent nation. We are feared all over, you know, Africa. Even if you can go to Botswana, they're going to tell you, no, more has South Africa, more Now I'm saying, Chairperson, with that in mind, could have been prevented. And Chairperson, I say until something is done, we are going to remain a country like this, very violent. And I would want to concur 100% with what the Deputy Minister of Police said, that as we advocate for school sport, let us also talk about safety. But let us also go to an extent of teaching, our youngsters that, these things that they see, that they call stadia, is their property. Let us teach them about ownership. Let us teach them about good behavior. Let us teach them about responsibility, Chairperson, because truly speaking, this is a culmination of what is happening in wards. This is a culmination of what is happening during soccer matches of schools. They always fight. Chairperson, I'm saying I stand to be convinced otherwise, based on quite a number of things that happened in the past 2 weeks. Look at Northwest, what is happening there. Look at Devon, what is happening there. Look at Moses Mabiri, what happened there. This is a violent nation, and something needs to be done. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable.